Tom Pincince here, interim athletic director at CCSU, with some familiar faces. A whole lot of the Connecticut coaching community here on this call, and this is members of we're like 02, 03 women's soccer teams, and perennial NEC champs at that time, and we're joined by, and I can't point because I can never point in the right direction, Kelly Shimmin, who was the player of the year, CCSU and NEC Hall of Famer, and now the head coach right across town at USJ. And up top with me also is Laura Duncan, who was multi NEC championships, now the head coach at the University of New Haven. Of course, Mick D'Arcy down below, our head coach, our women's soccer head coach, and Jen Frisch, fresh off a nap. Is that what happened? Fresh off a nap with new mom, Jen, down below. So first of all, congratulations to you and your husband, and coming to us live from North Carolina. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining. We're trying to get back together some of the best players on the best teams that we've ever had. I guess we're really going in my time at Central. And I say to people all the time, when I first started, I started in August of 2002, and we used to just pencil in hosting the NEC Women's Soccer Championship because it just seemed that we were going to have it, on campus all the time. Mick, what do you think of first seeing these three on the screen, and what does it make you think about?
Well, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, back to 2003. Obviously, before we come on the call, I was reminiscing a little bit, just looking back at some old photographs and so forth. But it just really doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But it was obviously we're celebrating our 25th year of CCSU women's soccer this year, and the ladies here on the screen with us are such a huge part of the foundation of the things that are still going on today.
Duncan, what do you think about when you look? I don't know how your screen's set up, but me, you, and Shim are on top on my screen.
Yeah.
So when you see Shim, and I know you guys see each other all the time, but when you think about your playing days and you see Jen and Kelly, what does it make you think about those years back at Central?
It just reminds you they were honestly some of the best years we ever had. I know people always talk about when you're prepping to go to college that college should be the best years of your life, and it truly was. I know there's great stuff in our lives still to come personally and professionally, but we had an absolute blast. And obviously there's lots of people on this call who are not on this call, but I mean, what a group we had, and we won a lot of games, but we had a lot of fun doing it too, which I think was really important.
So you guys all have coaching in line, and Frisch, even you a little bit after you stopped playing and coached for a while and eventually got out of it. But what was it about your experience, and Jen, we'll start with you, that made you think when you first got out that, I want to stay involved in this. This is something that I want to keep doing.
Yeah, my undergrad was in elementary ed, and I had a half a semester of student teaching. And I think just being in the classroom, being confined within like four walls, I'm like, nope, miss playing, miss all the girls on the team. How do I continue this? And I actually ended up going back home and volunteering for a little bit at a local college. And then Duncan called me up and had said that there was an opportunity at University of New Haven as a grad assistant. And right away, I'm like, yep, this is my opportunity to kind of take that step from player to coach and, really think about even what Mick went through and all of our assistants, and eventually kind of climb the ladder to be him one day.
Shim, we mentioned at the beginning that, NEC and CCSU, Athletic Hall of Famer. And earlier this month, we announced that your teammate, who's on the other side of the screen here, I have to do it that way, was also going to be into the Hall of Fame. And while that's been delayed, what were your thoughts when you found out that Laura was going to be joining you in that Hall of Fame?
I think it's awesome. I think it was so well deserved. I think a lot of the time defenders don't really get the acknowledgement they deserve because they don't get the stats.
I was pretty fortunate that, I got to take penalties and free kicks, so it made me look better than I was. But, Duncan was a force on the field. She took care of everyone off the field. She was just an unbelievable player, but also a person. So, all honesty, she should have been there before I was.
During those years, and whoever wants to go first can go first. And did you just expect to win games? Like I said, I came in in 2002. You guys worked your butts off, and you guys, put together, a span of years that were just incredible. But that 2003 year specifically, I think the final record was 16-3-3, right? And I think that there's 2 losses to UConn and 1 loss to St. John's in there. So 3 losses on the year, all to teams that were in the Big East at the time. What was the expectation going in, and how did you guys look at it going into seasons like that?
For me, I think, sorry, Dunks, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think Mick kept us all pretty grounded. I don't think we ever went into a game expecting to win. The couple of times I think we took it a little easy. We sure heard it at halftime and came back out and turned it around. So I think, the coaching staff did a really good job. Obviously we had so many good players. Denise, everyone here, Denise, Sophie Harper, it was just a really good side, but Mick never let us get ahead of ourselves, and it was always one game at a time.
Yeah, then I think eventually you start building on a little momentum. I mean, you love to win. So, you win a game, and again, like Shim said, you come back down to earth to prepare for the next one. But once you start going on a little bit of a winning streak like we did, you really don't want that to end. So, again, Mick grounded us, but we went back out fighting definitely to continue that win streak.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just going to add on to it because coming in freshman year, I think that's what we knew. We knew how to work really, really hard. And we learned to win games that first year. So going into 2003, it was, okay, let's continue this. And with the team we had, we were a little bit more experienced. And then there were some big games that we won right out of the gate. We just didn't want to know how to lose anymore. So
I think in the 2002 season as well, we were hosting it, and Mick told us in pre-season that we'd be working the tournament if we weren't playing in it. Kind of little motivation.
And I can't remember if it's 2002 or 2003, Mick, but I think it was the 2002 one, because I think I had just gotten there with the press box installation. Was that 2002?
That was 2002. So we were hosting in 2002, and we had the banquet the night before. And as we left the banquet at 8 o'clock or whatever, 9 o'clock, we only had lights on half the field, on the soccer field at that stage. And the lights were turned on, and they were building the press box to have it ready for the game on Friday morning. So it was ready in time.
Yeah, barely. I think it was about a half hour beforehand when the power was finally hooked up and we were ready to go. And then when we got to streaming eventually, and we had to stream from that press box, there was one year where we hosted and we actually ran the internet connection from the football press box. So we ran about 300 feet of cable to make sure that we could stream that game. So see how far we've come, in those years. And
a long way.
so if we take a look at that season, we started off with a win over Siena, then lost at UConn, and then won 6 in a row, including a 1-0 win on the road at UMass, a 1-0 win at Hofstra, a win at home against Hartford 2-0. Before there's a couple ties in there, and there's 3 more wins, or 4 or 5 more wins, a non-conference loss at St. John's, and then going into the tournament at 14-2-2. Is there pressure at that point going in to win? Knowing that you're hosting and that you've had such a good year?
Well, ironically, we weren't hosting. We had to go to Robert Morris to play the tournament because it was predetermined sites, back then. So
see that? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was one of those that not too many people were there, but it was us and Sacred Heart in the final, 2 Connecticut teams, playing out in Pittsburgh. But yeah, for me, that a lot of that season goes back to the very first game. Well, actually, you can go back to pre-season, which was just as important as well. But the first game, we beat Siena, and the game was at 12 o'clock. And I remember it because it was the first game to kick off the season, and a 12 o'clock start was unusual. So we were the first team to play, that year. And Jess Kelly scored early on in the game and ended up getting injured in the first half and didn't play again that year. So she actually led the nation in goal scoring, for at least an hour or so. And then that was their first season. But we played that game. We got off to a good start when Jess scored, and then Sienna took the game over. They equalized. It went into overtime, and they just battered us in that game. And Denise Thomas pops up and gets a goal in overtime, and we win 2-1. And I think when you look back when the season is over, you look back at some key moments, and I think one of those was in the very first game. That I don't think if we'd come back and won that game, it might have been a different story from there too. And then ironically, in pre-season, we had I think we lost 5-0 or 6-0 to Boston College in pre-season. Cal, I'm not sure. I don't think, Cal, did you play in that game, the pre-season game?
I don't think I don't think I played in it, but I remember we were supposed to go to like
a couple.
Came home and train instead.
But they took care of us pretty well in pre-season, but it worked out okay in the end.
I wonder if the change in hosting those games was because you played Sacred Heart in the final in 2003, and how many people were at that game in 2003?
We had a good show of parents. I can still remember someone must have taken the sheet of the hotel and painted blue steel and hung it up behind one of the goals. Some of you guys remember that. I think that might have been Leah's dad, God bless him. Anyway, someone had put that up. But anyway, it was mostly parents that had made the trip out, and at the end of the game, there was certainly a fair contingent from New Britain on the field.
I got to give Jenny Wilkin a shout out. I believe she drove all the way out to Pittsburgh too.
I think the deal was that she'd get a ring if she came, but she never did.
I'll remind her of that.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't go if I didn't even remember where it was at that point in time. So in the semifinals, it's a 3-2 win over Monmouth, and then against Sacred Heart, we go to a shootout, right, to win the championship. And that was if I'm not mistaken, was that the second straight year that it had gone to a shootout, because I think we had hosted the previous year, right, in 2002, right. And we had a shootout that year. And the only reason I remember is because I had a picture of, I think it's Sabrina making a save in 2002, and I only remember that because the digital camera that we used actually took a 3.5-inch floppy. Do you guys remember what those are? Into the actual camera itself. We had that floppy in the camera, and then later in the year, somebody stole it out of my desk, and I never saw it again. That's why I remember hosting.
Wasn't that Sophie in 2002?
Sophie got the fifth one in 2002.
Yeah.
And everybody stormed the field.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the greatest memories of that actual game.
Definitely.
You see it on photo now is the pig pile in the middle of the field. And was it who had the crutch? Somebody was Will Bolton maybe? Field,
Will.
Crutch in the air. And I just remember Sophie being on the bottom of the pig pile just screaming.
Broke a rib.
We had another game to go play eventually, and you're worried about this poor kid in the bottom of the pig pile.
She almost didn't play the next week because she was still, I don't think she trained that whole week.
Yeah. But I get that was probably one of the differences between obviously having the ability to host in 2002 and then play out in the middle of nowhere in 2003 and go ahead and win it. But definitely a little bit of a different atmosphere. But at the end of the day, winning a championship is winning a championship. But it's nice when it's back on your home soil at least.
And I feel like we always had very strong support at home. I know in the last couple of years we've had games with 1,000-2,000 people at games. We've hosted NECs, but even back then, I remember the strong support at home, whether it's other student athletes, whether it's other students, parents, friends. And now when we host the game, like you guys come back. I mean, the tailgate alone puts a couple hundred people in the stands. But that home support has always been there. So after the championship, we find out we're going to go play at Boston College, who at the time is number 13 in the country. And as Mick said, we didn't have a great preseason game against Boston College. Mick, what's the mentality going into that game? How do you prepare? At that point, you guys are 15 2-3 going into that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously winning the championship was huge. We were out, and you realize after all the photographs been taken and all that now you still have to drive 12 hours home from Pittsburgh, and so the first problem occurred pretty quickly when after the girls went in to take a shower and they come back out, someone said Sabrina's not feeling great, and Sabrina had made the save and to win it. She was named the MVP of the conference tournament, and she'd picked up a concussion during the game that we hadn't, that we didn't even know about. So quickly it gets diagnosed, and we know this. So now we've got our starting goalkeeper, who's just been named MVP of the conference tournament, is out with a concussion, and we know that she's not going to be available to play. So that was kind of the first blow from there. But Ashley Farah came in, and we had a lot of confidence in Ash from there. And it's probably was one of the nice things about when you look at some teams that we've had over the years, and there's been a really strong starting 11, and it doesn't change a whole lot. But there was so many other people in 03 that stepped up. Like Christy Robinson took the last penalty kick, for us to win out there. Kelly Shimmin missed the penalty kick in the final that year.
Oh, Shim.
He scored one in 02 and 04, but missed one in 03. But Christy Robinson stepped up, and that was her moment. But then we went to BC, and I think Ash Farah really was the story of the night, because
she won us the game.
She played in a couple of games that year, but Sabrina had clearly been the starting goalkeeper, and Ash was just phenomenal on the night. And so we went into BC. We knew they were a good side. They'd the week before they just beaten Notre Dame, who I think were number maybe 1 or 2 in the country at the time. So it was I think it was one of the strongest teams that the Boston College had. But in the back of my mind, I knew that they'd beat us comfortably in preseason, and as much as the coaching staff up there probably would have had a healthy respect for the season that we'd had, their players were always going to struggle with the fact that they beat us so comfortably early, and to give us the respect that that we deserved. But we also knew we'd players missing when we played them in preseason, and that we were a much better side going back up there in November. So we made the odd decision to not go up and practice on the Thursday. We had just come back from the Pittsburgh trip, and I thought there'd been a lot of traveling on a lot of miles on us already at that stage. So we decided not to go and practice. Having already played there, I didn't think that we really needed to. And then we just showed up we drove up on the day of the game and took care of it from there.
Dunk, what are your thoughts going into that game after knowing, what had happened in the preseason? Is the mentality that was a very long time ago and that you had a whole season in between, or what? You remember what the team's thoughts were going up there?
I mean, obviously just the excitement. I mean, the reality is when you qualify for the NCAAs, you arguably always get a team that should be better than you on paper. So you're excited to go up and play them. I mean, realistically, shouldn't be a lot of pressure on us, because we're not supposed to win that game on paper. But one of the things that Mick's always done over the years is our non-conference schedule has always been pretty decent teams. We don't necessarily just schedule the easy wins. We scheduled, like you said, some teams against Big East opponents, and being in some of those games, whether we won them or not, we were always in some of those games. So I think mentality-wise, we're prepped to go in and play those teams in the in the NCAAs, and little pressure to go in and win, but mentality is we want to go in and win. And at this stage, when you've been on such a roll in the momentum, you've only got yourselves to beat, really. So there's no reason why, we shouldn't have the ability to show up and compete and take BC down.
So all Ashley Farah did in that game was make 16 saves. The shot total, does anyone remember the shot total? I'm going to try to look really quick.
I think we had one.
We had 4 shots on goal. Let's see, we had 2 by Shim, 1 by Jen Frisch, and 1 by Tara O'Brien. And they had 16. So the shots are 16-4 in that game, and Frisch, you got one of those. But what do you remember about that game?
I remember going up with just on adrenaline, And I remember even watching them warm up, and their warm up wasn't as strong. I mean, from the first minute we kind of stepped on the field, we were just in it. And I remember just looking over, and I'm like, they're not taking this seriously. They think it's just, they're gonna win, and it's just another game for them. And I think we just went out there, we played. Everyone sort of believed in us. We believed in ourselves. But I don't think any game kind of came easy to us the whole season. I think we always went out there and fought. We were blue collar. We just stepped on the field and we went 100 miles an hour every game. So, when in doubt, get the ball to Shim and she'll make magic happen.
So Shim, you score the only goal of that game. It comes in, it looks like the 60th minute. Go up 1-0, and there's 30 minutes left. What's our thought and mentality with 30 minutes left up 1-0 on the number 13 team in the country?
I mean, I think ideally we would have liked to keep playing the way we were, but in reality, I think we had 11 players behind the ball. I think I ended up at left back. I was like the third left back, and we just kind of made a wall. And then, I think the good thing about our team is everybody always put the body on the line. There was no, I'm a forward, I'm not going to defend. Everybody just dropped in and helped wherever they could. And like we already said, but Ashley was huge in that game. Like some of the saves she made were just ridiculous. So I think pretty much like, let's hold on for dear life.
And it was
might have been the longest 30 minutes of my life.
Well, and it was such a different time back then too, because this past year when we were playing at Rutgers and, we're all sitting at a basketball game and everyone has their computers out. Like people in the stands are watching on their phones, and at press row we're watching the game on the computer. Like no one's paying attention to the basketball game that's going on. Everyone's watching, the NCAA soccer game that's going on. But I can remember sitting at press row during that game, and it was either getting phone calls from somebody or like we didn't really have a great way to follow it. And it was like, oh, we're up 1-0. We're up 1-0. And then we just sat there and waited and waited. And it was like
we sat there and waited too.
You couldn't get updates, and you couldn't, and then maybe an hour later we heard like they won 1-0. And it's like, okay, do we announce this at the game? Are we sure we won? Are we sure what happened? Because it was just so different back then. Shim, how did you end up playing soccer at Central?
Denise Thomas. I'd been out injured while I was in England, and I bumped into Denise at a soccer tournament over the summer, and she's like told me a Swedish girl that was supposed to come over had tore her ACL, so wasn't coming anymore, and I should come. I said, all right, why not? So I think this happened, it was August, so I didn't come till like September 17th by the time I got all the, visas and stuff. But I think I missed I showed up for the Yale game, right, Mick? And I remember at the Yale game, he put me on in the first half and then brought me back off. And fair enough, I was out of shape, but I didn't know the rules. So I was so mad. I'm like, why did I come for this? 10 minutes, that's it.
This was the year of September 11th as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, which kind of slowed everything down a little bit too.
All right. Dunk, how did you end up at Central?
It's a small world, really. Was at a academy, a 2-year boarding school in England. We had a goalkeeper coach by the name of Adam Clemenson, who actually played soccer on the men's side at Central back in the day. Who, after he left Central, came back to England, was our goalkeeper coach, and just had a connection out there. At the time, there was, we mentioned Denise and Emma Wright and a couple of other players that we were all looking to get out to the States, and we came out on tour and had an opportunity to look at 3 or 4 different schools, but Central was kind of our home base due to the connection. We were actually recruited by the previous coach before Mick, but Mick was the lucky one who got us all afterwards. So we came out, I believe, in March before our freshman year, and came out on tour and signed the letter of intent. And Mick picked us up at the airport at the beginning of August at some point. So, we went a couple of months not even knowing who the coach was going to be, to be honest with you. Jackie Haddon, the assistant coach, and kind of continued on our recruitment process for us. And then the big man gets the job, and it's all history from there.
Frisch, how about you?
Yeah, and It's funny, I was just talking to my dad about it last night. I'm like, Dad, remember when I didn't really want to go to college? I just wanted to play soccer locally. I wanted to stay home in like upstate New York in my little bubble. And, you know, he was a huge, huge help with the recruiting process and, you know, sent letters out for me. And at one of the games, Jackie Hadden was there. And after, you know, we had talked with Jackie and Mick about a visit, I stepped on campus. I think it was a rainy day, Mick, where you guys were showing me around campus. And, you know, once I saw the field, we had a grass field. It was beautiful. It was like the best in the Northeast Conference. And I'm like, I'm going to school here, Dad. This is it. So, and then of course, after meeting Mick and Jackie at that point, I was sold.
So really it was Jackie and Denise Thomas that brought everybody to Central, and Mick just reaped the rewards of that. Is that what we're hearing?
More or less.
Mick, when you think back, and we talk about 25 years, you know, coming up, and this was 20 for you, if I remember correctly, right? This was 20, and you take a look at, you know, those that helped build the program, you know, to get where it is, and they're still involved. How much does that mean to you? That they're still involved. Like Shim could walk in the door and Duncan and Frisch, like anybody could walk in the door and like immediately, you know, and remember, and, you know, like these, like we said at the beginning, 17, it doesn't seem like it was 17 years ago. And what these guys don't realize is that I'm only a couple of years older than them, but I was so young at the time when I came over there to work. But what does it mean to you for this program to have alums like that?
Yeah, I was just a couple of years older than them too, Tom. So. No, it's fun. I mean, we've had so many players who have come through the program and gone into the coaching ranks. I mean, you know, we've got, you know, 3 of them here on the screen with us, but we've, you know, Kira Crinion, now she's the head coach down at Seton Hall. You know, Emma is down in San Antonio. So we've got a couple of Division I coaches, and we've got, I can't even go into the amount of high school coaches that we have. And there's a couple that run that 03 team as well. You know, Danielle has been coaching for a long time. So it's fun to see that that not only did they enjoy playing, the experience of, you know, getting their 4 years in, but that they've gone on to continue to give back to the game. And, you know, there's no secret, every coach would love to still be playing. But when you can't play anymore, you know, coaching is the next best thing. So, you know, being able to, you know, follow their careers and coaching has been fun too.
Shim, what did coming to play at Central mean to you?
I didn't really know too much. Before I came, it was kind of like a last minute decision, but, you know, as soon as I got there, everyone was just so welcoming. You know, obviously I was lucky. I stayed on Duncan's couch, I think, for about 2 months before I moved into the dorm. But, you know, like we had some English people already, so it made me feel welcome. And then obviously, you know, Mick takes everybody under his wing and kind of, you know, especially the foreign kids, he kind of, you know, was like a second dad to us all. So it was just a really family feeling as soon as you arrived. And, you know, I was worried being 2 weeks late, you know, everyone had kind of already known each other and everything, but it wasn't the case. I don't think I've ever played on a team where everybody actually likes each other. You know, it doesn't happen often, but we just got real lucky that all the personalities that Mick's ever recruited there always fit in with each other.
And what did playing at Central mean for you?
You know, I definitely have to second that. I think just, you know, one thing that comes to mind is just family, you know, going through ups and downs. You know, I tore my ACL my junior year. So that was, you know, that was the hardest thing to overcome, but to know that, you know, all the help that I had gotten along the way, Mick and Tej, I mean, everyone was there. Even afterwards, just being able to pick up the phone to Duncan, Shim, I've done it plenty of times when I was coaching, to say, I have no idea what to do in this situation. You know, can you help me out? So, and then being able to, like Mick, invite him to, you know, my wedding. It's just, you know, we were a family, we still are. It's amazing to even like see these guys again on camera. It just doesn't feel like time flies by. Feels like, you know, I just saw you guys yesterday. So it was just the most incredible 4 years. And even thinking about doing this interview, I was looking at some pictures. I was like, I got to get fit. I got to play. Every time I talk with them, I'm like ready to go out for a run. So miss them.
Duncan, how about you? I feel like you never left, but.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't left, but there's actually a moment that sticks for me. So, you know, I got hurt my freshman year too, and pretty bad where, you know, I knew we were not going to be able to play for the rest of the season. And obviously moving to the States and being out within the first week of preseason was really, really tough. And my mom and little sister, Jade, came out for my surgery. And, you know, 2 weeks into being here, missing home, missing friends and family, I wanted to leave. I mean, in my mind, I had no real reason to stay. I couldn't play. And my mom was actually the one who convinced me to stay. She's like, you are in the best spot you could be. You need to stay in America. You need to stay with this team. You need to stay with the coaching staff. And for her to see that after a 2-week visit, I knew she saw something pretty special. Because I know how hard it must have been for her to leave me behind. You know, she could have just put me on the plane and taken me home and cared for me. But she saw something that obviously was extremely true. I mean, an unbelievable family and coaching staff and teammates around us, even down to, like you said, obviously I became very, very good friends with Kathy and Tom in the training room. They were like a second family to me too. So it was so much bigger than just our soccer team as well. It really was the whole athletic community. And, you know, she saw that really early on, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
What did we leave out from that season? Anything?
Oh, so much. You go back to the NCAAs, and I'm thinking of CJ and Linda holding up the huge Blue Devil blanket, you know, up in the crowd, and just in the middle of the, you know, a big throng of supporters over there, yeah, leading the whole thing. And I can still remember getting the hug from CJ on the fields, you know, after the game. Dick Judd, you know, up there for the Yukon game, you know, he's got his arm in a sling and he's still high-fiving people with, you know, both arms. So
did he jump in the halftime talk or the team talk?
Oh yeah, I think he gave the halftime talk.
He used to just go sit on the bench during games, didn't he?
Always.
During the season.
Always. Yeah. My very first game at Central, you know, we actually had to play down in Willowbrook because there was a scheduling mix-up, whatever. So our first game was down there, and Jackie Haddon was the assistant at the time, and all of a sudden I look around and I see there's some guy sitting on the bench, and I'm like, Jackie, who's the guy? And she goes, oh, don't worry, that's just the president. You'll like him, he's good.
I think Coach Erickson nearly cried as well in his little speech.
Yeah.
Gosh, he did.
Never seen him so emotional.
There was a lot of emotion. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, remember we had an unbelievable manager at the time, Kevin, who was with us for a couple of years. And, you know, you can imagine us, you know, we've just lost, you know, to Yukon in the second round, and we haven't really even gone into that game. But, you know, it's 2 minutes left in double overtime, and, you know, incredibly emotional. And I look around, and Kevin, the manager, he's the one who seems to be most upset on the sideline. So we have to go console Kevin. But it was a great time. We had a wonderful staff. Tanya Pilblad, you know, from Sweden, she was our assistant coach. You know, Sean was there at the time. It was Jen's first year with us as a volunteer. So just you know, a great staff that was put together. But then obviously having, you know, CJ being the AD at the time was great, and President Dick Judd was just, you know, always there for us too. So you really felt that, you know, the win against BC was the first win in the NCAAs, but, you know, kind of the whole school got behind us. And, you know, the different things I still remember from it. Mandy, who was our softball coach at the time, and I'd never even heard of these things called hand warmers. And you guys probably remember the BC game that night. It was freezing cold that night. So the softball team, you know, Mandy gives us these box of hand warmers before the game. And everyone's like, wow, these things are great. But yeah, just everybody kind of got on board. It was really just fun to see the sense of the Blue Devil community at the time was awesome. I
was trying to go back and remember, you know, after a while some of the games merge in, but the final against Sacred Heart, it was 0-0. Is that the game I gave up the PK with about 12 minutes left, and just figured our season was about to end?
I was then wound the player up before she took it.
Yeah, they put it over the crossbar, thankfully. But I just remember with that, and I remember you saying, Mick, that because I remember looking over thinking, I'm so sorry, like I've just ended our season, and you just said, well, I know there's 12 minutes left on the clock, so this team can get back in it. But fortunately, they missed it. And
that's, you know, Tom, you said at the beginning that team go on the field thinking they were going to win every game. I mean, there was so many close games that year. I mean, we were the only team in the conference that we didn't score against in the regular season was Monmouth, and of course we get them in the semi-final. And the first half we go two goals down. So the only team that we couldn't score against, now we're losing 2-0 to in the semi-final.
Tara got us back in that game, right?
Tara got the one right before halftime. Yeah, and then we got it back to 3-2 in the second half. I think Macca got the winner.
Looking quickly, there's 8 1-goal wins in that season, you know, and that doesn't even include the, you know, the 0-0 game against Sacred Heart. So 8 1-goal victories that year out of 16.
Yeah, I think that year was definitely more about our defensive strengths than, you know, anything else. We were so well organized and we just didn't give up many chances.
Yeah, I mean, it was you look back at the games, the turning points. I think the Hofstra one was big. You know, was down there. They were opening up their stadium, and we down. And they were. You remember the crowd that day, Kel?
Yeah.
But you got I think you scored that day, Kel, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Frisch with the goal and a 1-0 win.
No, Frisch scored.
I remember that like it was yesterday. Yeah.
But yeah, it was needless to say, it was a tough environment to go into. You know, they expected to take care of us in their, you know, opening up their stadium. But you know, the St. John's game was huge. We lost that game 3-2, but we were 2-0 up. You know, that one never should have got away from us. But it was certainly a lot of tough, tight games during the course of the year. So I think when Laura says the last 30 minutes against BC, you know, after you scored, you think you got to defend for 30 minutes, whatever. But we'd been used to playing in tight games all year, so it wasn't.
I think we beat Yale that year too, Mick, right? 1-0?
Right. That was the first time we beat Yale, yeah.
Yeah, I think Shim, you had that.
Shim scored that goal at Yale, 1-0.
When in doubt, it was Shim.
Well, it's either Shim, Macca, Frisch, and there's a couple of Sophie Hoppers in here too. Just the Sophie Hopper story is my middle daughter's name is Sophie, and I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. For some reason, it's just that name just stuck in my mind, and she's like, so that's what she's named.
Sophie,
one of my kids is named after. What's that?
Sophie only scored good goals.
No.
Hey,
right? Cracking.
Is there any other kind? Let's see how many she scored. Well, Shim, you scored 11 that year. You only assisted on 16.
I think we gave me a couple
Kel,
of
do you want to tell that story? Kelly, do you want to tell the story why you only had 16 assists?
Mick helped me out a little bit, right?
the bet with Jackie Haddon?
Yeah. Beat her record.
I think the previous record was 15 assists for the season. So Jackie Haddon, who was our assistant coach for Kel's first 2 years, and Kel said, I can get more than that. And sure enough, went out and got 16. The funny part was the game that we played down against Mount St. Mary's, and you talk about, you know, people controlling a game or whatever, but I think we beat Mount St. Mary's 5-2 that day. Tom, you can probably help me out with who scored the goals or whatever, but I remember at one stage, Kelly assisted Macca, and, you know, so Kel was really big into getting her assists. So Macca scores, and, you know, now look, Kel looks over me on the sideline. I said, you know, now Macca's the leading goal scorer on the team. Within like 2 minutes, Kel scores again.
That's it. Yeah, if you look back, Macca scores assisted by Kelly, and then at 32 minutes, Macca scores again, assisted by Kelly. In 55th minute, Macca scores assisted by Kelly, and then you must have told her that because in the 78th minute, Shim scores unassisted. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your Sunday. It's dreary here. I don't know what it's like in North Carolina, but it's pretty ugly here today. But appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to meet with us to talk about that season, talk about your time at CCSU. You know, we're trying to do as much content as we can during this time when we're all stuck in our homes, and you know, certainly appreciate you guys taking times out of your day.
Oh, thanks for having us. It was a blast.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.